Hello, Mishpacha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. Welcome back to my channel. It's Friday, so that means it's time for a Friday Reads video. And before I start the actual Friday Reads portion, I will say I have been a little lax or negligent in my booktube watching duties as of late, so my apologies for that. It's been a really crazy week. I had 2 all-day Zoom meetings prior to classes starting back, because our classes resume at the school where I teach on Monday, this coming Monday. And yeah, it's just been a lot of class preparation and all-day meetings and people freaking out about COVID because, you know, as people probably know, the Delta variant is running rampant in the United States right now. And even though I'm vaccinated and much of the faculty at the school where I work are also vaccinated, and probably some of the students are vaccinated, our school is not going to require any kind of social distancing measures. So it's going to, so if I have a class of 24 students, which all of my classes have 24 students, we're going to all be in there, 24 people plus me in the room at one time. There's, no windows or anything, of course. And they're also not requiring masks. They're encouraging you to wear a mask, but they're not requiring it. So I just feel like there's no way we're going to avoid campus spread of the Delta variant, especially because the 18 to 25-year-old population are among the least vaccinated and among the likeliest to spread the Delta variant. So yeah, anyway. So all of that's been going on. So yeah, our classes start back Monday. Wish me luck. Again, I'm not really so much worried for myself because I am vaccinated and I do plan to wear a mask, but I am really honestly concerned for the students who I'm sure are going to get this, especially if they're not masking and not vaccinated. And I'm also concerned for some of my colleagues who are more immunocompromised and at risk medically than I am. So that's yeah, it's sort of upsetting. So anyway, all of that aside for the moment. So I did finish 2 books in the past week, and I'm currently reading 5 books, so let's go. So the first book I finished this past week was The Mothers by Bennett. This was Brit Bennett's debut novel, and this was gifted to me by Lindsay of Lindsay's Book Life in our holiday book exchange last year. And I quite enjoyed this overall. I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. It tells the story of 2 girls who become friends in their adolescence, one named Nadia and the other named, Aubrey. Knew it started with an A. Yeah, so Nadia and Aubrey, so they sort of bond in their adolescence over their shared motherlessness. And Nadia's mother took her own life at some point earlier before the book starts, and Aubrey is estranged from her mother because her mother did not protect her from an abusive situation with a step-parent, basically. And so they sort of bond over that, and there's also a man that they share in common between them, although Nadia dates him at a different point, and Aubrey dates him later on. So it has that sort of love triangle aspect to it as well. So it's sort of a coming-of-age story for both of the girls as they go from adolescence to adulthood, and both of them sort of think about what might have been in one way or another. I didn't really love the love triangle aspect of this book because honestly, this man was trash and deserved neither of them. True. But aside from that, I did find this engaging, and I found it a mostly compelling read, and I enjoyed seeing how the girls' friendship developed and was tested over time. So yeah, 3.75 stars, enjoyed it. The other book that I finished this week was one that I read as an ebook, so I don't have it here to hold and show you. But this was Bloodchild and Other Stories by Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler, by her own admission, did not really enjoy writing short stories for the most part, so I believe this is her only collection of short stories that was published in her lifetime. So the edition of it that I read had 5 stories that I think were original to Bloodchild and Other Stories, 2 essays that Butler wrote that appeared elsewhere, and then 2 new stories for, it was some kind of anniversary edition of the volume, I think. And then also, after each of the stories, there was a brief afterword that was written by Octavia Butler, where she talks about her sort of motivation in writing the story and what inspired it, and things like that. And two or three of the 7 stories, I guess, that are collected here are what I would call sort of more like hardcore sci-fi stories, in that, you know, they take place in like a very different reality from the one that we currently inhabit. And then the other ones are, you know, they still sort of fall in the category of like science fiction, but they're more similar to a world that we live in, just with some slight differences here and there, if that makes sense. So I quite enjoyed this collection overall. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I found it compulsively readable. I really liked the little afterwords by Octavia Butler. I enjoyed hearing about what she was thinking about when she was working on these stories. I also really enjoyed the 2 essays that were included by her in this collection, and I really enjoyed the sort of feminist thrust of a lot of the stories, and that's something I probably should have picked up on just in the works by Octavia Butler that I'd read previously, because I have previously read Kindred and Parable of the Sower and Wild Seed. But yeah, these stories in particular really sort of hit home the feminist thrust of a lot of her work, so I really appreciated that element of it as well. So yeah, if you like short stories, especially if you like science fiction, fantasy kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend it. 4 stars. So that's everything I finished this week. So in terms of what I am currently reading, I am fewer than 100 pages away from the end of Mendelssohn is on the Roof by Jiri Weil. Jiri Weil was a Jewish Czech writer, and this basically gives you a snapshot of Nazi-occupied Prague, and you get the perspectives of different characters, both Nazis and Czech citizens, Jews and non-Jews. So it's sort of like I said, kind of a snapshot of Nazi-occupied Prague. So I'm sure I will finish this up in the next week. I am also still currently reading Arabian Jazz by Diana Abu-Jabbar. This is my pick for August for my own Arab American literature project, where every month I read one book written by an Arab American writer. And this is a sort of family story of these 2 grown daughters of a Jordanian man who now lives in who was born in Jordan and now lives in upstate New York, and the girls, obviously you said the women, right? The women's mother has died sometime before, but they still live with their father, and they're you know, around age 30, although I think the girls themselves are about 7 years apart from each other in age. And yeah, so honestly, I'm 200 pages into this, and it's about 375 pages, and I'm not really sure where it's going because it's just sort of like circled around for a while. So I'm still kind of waiting to see if it's ever gonna actually come in for a landing, or, you know, something dramatic or interesting is gonna happen with the plot, because right now it's just kind of like, it's giving me a lot of characterization of these people and their lives, which is interesting, but I'm still just kind of waiting for something to happen. So we'll see. I am also still reading the Essential Writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson. I am pleased to say that as of today, I have crossed the 400-page mark on this 850-page book. So hopefully by the time I do my next Friday Reads video, I will legit be at the halfway point of this very long book. So that's exciting. I am still enjoying it, but it's just, you know, it's kind of daunting when you're reading a book like this and you're just like, I'm gonna be reading this forever, basically. But it is good, and I am still enjoying it. I am also currently reading, I picked up this week, A Very Stable Genius, which is about Donald Trump's term in office by, I think it's Philip Rucker and Carol Leonnig, but I'll put whoever the authors are over here, but I think that's right. And these 2 I think are still reporters for the Washington Post, and this book was based on extensive interviews with a lot of different sources, And yeah, basically gives you a snapshot of the first, I think, 3 or so years of Trump's presidency. And I was interested in reading it because they've just recently come out with a sequel of sorts. I think it's called Only I Alone Can Fix It. Written by the same two Washington Post reporters, that chronicles Trump's last year in office, and especially the COVID crisis and things like that. So it's interesting, and I'm 85 pages into it right now, and it's like, even though I literally lived through this, it's insane to me looking back on it how quickly things happened. I mean, just within the first 6 weeks of his term, the first year of his term, how much stuff happened in that amount of time, not to mention the first 6 months. But yeah, like when I was actually living through it, and if you're also from the United States, maybe you can relate to this, but when I was actually living through it, it was almost like time had slowed down, because every day I'd just wake up and be like, what fresh hell is this? It was, in a way, almost sort of like March of last year, right? Like when the pandemic first hit, it's like time just suddenly slowed down and every day became a lot longer. I feel like certainly the first year of Trump's presidency was like that. And so, yeah, reading back about it now, it's just insane to see how quickly things happened, even though they felt like they were... It felt like so much at the time, and you were like constantly overwhelmed, and like I said, the days just sort of like stretched out before you. So yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a little mind-blowing, but yeah, it's interesting. So, and then the last book I picked up to read this week I got from the library, and this is Nice Racism: How Progressive White People Perpetuate Racial Harm by Robin DiAngelo. Robin DiAngelo, as it says on the cover of this book, was the author of White Fragility. I read White Fragility last year and really liked it and got a lot out of it. And this is the follow-up to that. And I think this book, I mean, I'm only, what am I, like 60 pages into this? 50, I'm on page 56. But I think this book is important because I think a lot of times when we, like liberal, progressive white people, think about racism, we think about it as other white people's problem, i.e., those bad racist white people, not like us, the good, not racist white people. And essentially Robin DiAngelo says, hey, you need to look at how you yourself are contributing to racist structures on a daily basis. And I think that's really important. I think it's really easy to like sit back and point your finger at other people and say you're the problem and you need to work on this. I think it's a lot harder and thus more important to look inward at yourself and say, what am I doing to keep these structures of power in place, and how can I change my own behavior, rather than just sort of deflecting problems onto someone else and thus upholding the system of power. And that's essentially the argument here in a nutshell, and I am finding this very compelling reading thus far. So that is everything that I either finished this week or am currently reading. If you have thoughts about any of these books, I would love to hear it. Please feel free to let me know that down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this. I hope everyone is staying healthy and well. I hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading, and until next time, would it kill you to call you mama?